Sometimes unplanned purchases can throw us off of our budget, throw us off of our game, and put us in an area where we are struggling. Today, we are going to talk about different triggers and different types and categories of impulsive spending. And I hope that this helps someone today. I think we all struggle with it, whether it is from a simple aspect, a spontaneous aspect, or maybe even a more complex aspect of letting go of our money. And then later we think, oh my gosh, why did I do that? I hope you'll stick around. Hi, I'm Bonita and I am early retired. I'm not old enough yet for Social Security. I'm living on a low income and I am living off of savings. I live in Kansas on a farm and I have a donkey. This is Brownie. I have frugal videos all year round, and I hope that you will join me this year as we share ways to save money and live our dreams. I have to admit, sometimes I get a spark of an idea for a video because I've seen somebody else do a short video of some sort. And that's where this idea came from. I was watching this girl on TikTok the other day, and she said, I have $600 left on my credit card that I can spend. I just had a $50,000 student loan. I have 3 days of PTO left, and I'm going to go to Italy. So, heck with the fact that she didn't have any money. She was going to make this spontaneous trip, spend money that wasn't hers, that she didn't have for this short term trip that in the long run was going to cost her a lot more than she probably had planned. And I think that's where some people get caught up. There are all different levels of spontaneity and impulse purchases. And we're going to talk about some of those today. For me, that would be a huge one, and I would never do anything like that. But for some people, they think I only live once and I'm going to do it. I'm going to owe money when I die. It doesn't matter. But for me, I'm like, no, I want the security and I want to be able to take those vacations and pay for them ahead of time. So, what triggers us? What makes us different? What tempts us to go ahead and just jump in with both feet and spend money that we didn't plan to spend? I hope you enjoy this video. I found it so interesting as I started breaking down the layers of the types of things that tempt us to go ahead and spend when we hadn't planned to. Unplanned purchases can be from getting takeout, grabbing something in the checkout line, buying some groceries that you didn't plan to buy, which is a big one because we all have to go grocery shopping, or just treating ourselves here and then. There can be all different types and amounts of unplanned purchases, and that is some of the most common ones. And then some of the reasons that we do it is, oh, it's a good deal, or our emotions will trigger it, or our money management skills maybe aren't that strong. Sometimes we want that dopamine hit that comes from buying something new and exciting, like in retail therapy. So there are actually layers and categories of impulse spending and triggers that set those off. So let's talk about them today and let me know in the comments if any of these are ones that you find actually are the reasons why you spend money that you hadn't planned on spending. The first category is just pure impulse buying. It's like that escape impulse. It's the most basic type of unplanned purchase. It's driven by a sudden urge, a sudden desire, like being in that checkout line and deciding, oh, I want a drink or I want a candy bar. That is impulse buying at its purest level. And that's the first type. I think a lot of us have been there. The second one is a reminder impulse. So maybe you're out shopping and you see sunscreen and you're like, we're going to go to the lake in a couple of weeks. I don't think I have any. I'm going to go ahead and grab some. So that reminder purchase is when you see something that triggers something that you think is a need or you think you may have forgotten to purchase. And so that one is another very common one that I think we have all done and can identify with. Then you get into the third category, which is the suggestion impulse. This is the one that is done by social media creators or commercials or marketing or recommendations of your friends. Maybe you hadn't even thought about this item, this wasn't even on your radar. And then when they talked about it and told you how great it was, all of a sudden you're like, hey, that's a pretty good suggestion. I'm going to think about doing that, or I'm just going to do it. The fourth one is planned impulse buying, like purchasing something you had already considered that all of a sudden you see a discount or a deal on. So maybe you've thought about buying a bigger screen TV, but you just haven't really put a lot of thought into it. And then you see it's on markdown when you walk through the store and you're like, hey, I kind of thought about that already and that's a good deal. I'm going to go ahead and get it. That planned impulse buying can be anywhere from buying something small to buying something larger. It can be from a few dollars to a lot of dollars. So that is another level. And as you see, all of these levels we can identify with, can't we? They're not unreasonable levels. They're not like that trip to Italy, but we're going to get into that one coming up. The fifth type of impulse buying is situational impulse. So, say it's Christmas season and you're out walking through the store and you hear the Christmas music going and you see the poinsettias and the trees with lights and the little automated train sets that are making their rounds around the tree. And you see some things that look attractive and fun because of the season and the music and the lights. And you decide to pick up a few extras. That is a type of situational impulse. And I know I've been there, especially in my younger years, because I loved Christmas items. I loved decorating for Christmas. And that's part of the reason I have way too many totes of Christmas items that I don't use that I still need to pare down. The sixth one is one that we hear about a lot. It is emotionally driven. So it is influenced by whatever state of mind you happen to be in. And when I broke this down to look at the differences between males and females on emotional purchasing, I found this to be so interesting. So I wanted to share it with you. The most common emotionally driven unplanned purchases come when we are either stressed, we are super happy, excited, or we are sad. Those emotions are the strongest when it comes to unplanned purchases. But when we divide these up between male and female, and some of us may think, oh, men don't struggle with that. Listen to these percentages. 48% of men's purchases that are unplanned come when they are happy or excited, while 50% of women's come when they're happy or excited. That's not much difference. For men, 28% of their unplanned purchases come when they are bored, where with women, it is 32%. Again, not much difference. 14% of the unplanned purchases that men make are when they are sad. But for women, that jumps to 28%. And that doesn't surprise me. 8% of unplanned purchases by men will be made when they're angry. And for women, it is 10%. And the next category was one I had not even thought about, but 13% of unplanned purchases are made when men are intoxicated, and 5% are made when women are intoxicated. So maybe that's where all those boat purchases come from. The seventh category is a compulsive spending impulse. Now, these tendencies seem to be trigger driven. The spending is trigger driven, like emotional needs, mental health, and it's a compulsive type of spending where you're overbuying things that you don't need and you just continue to buy them. Now, when we look back at that lady from Italy, none of us are experts in this category, right? I mean, we've all dealt with a lot of these different categories. But when you look back at that lady that took that Italy trip, she was probably very stressed. She probably was a student, right? She had a student loan. She didn't have any money. She had $600 credit left on her credit card, and she was wanting to treat herself, and for once she had her access to some money where she could do that. She had 3 days off and she was just like, I'm just going to do that. That was an impulsive decision to spend money that she had access to, even though she was going to have to pay it back plus interest. So I would say she probably fell in that emotionally driven category. Let me know what you think about that. But I just found all of this to be so interesting. So let's now look at the layers of how this happens. So you have the trigger, you have the interest in the item, you have the desire for the item, and then you quickly make the decision to buy. So, I mean, as you can see, that can move split second, right? So, how can we try to avoid these types of situations? We can go back to some very basic common sense types of things to keep ourselves from that happening. One, make a budget, track your spending, see where you're spending your money on. I know when I first started tracking my spending, I didn't even necessarily want to spend some days because I didn't want to write it down. And it made me accountable to myself. And I thought, yeah, if I spend this, I got to go write it down. Now I don't mind so much writing it down because I know that it's so helpful. The third way is to give yourself permission to spend at times and plan for those purchases and save for those purchases. Then you don't have that impulsive spending or that remorse afterwards or getting yourself into budgetary trouble because you've already planned and budgeted and saved for that. The next way is to wait a hot minute. I mean, think it through. Like, I wanted windows and I thought about it for a full year before I acted on trying to get bids for windows. That was a big purchase for me. That was a big decision. I didn't want to do it just overnight and say, hey, I want windows. I'm just going to get windows. I thought, no, I'm really going to think this through. Can I afford it? Is it going to cut into my savings so much I'm going to be sorry later? I mean, I looked at all of those aspects and they're actually starting on my windows tomorrow. I'm so excited. And then shop with a plan. That's that list. That's that list of savings and specials and things that you are honing in on that you're going to take advantage of that you need, or you need to backstock a few of those. So shop with a plan. Don't shop when you're emotional. Oh my gosh. We just went over all of that, right? And then try to limit your temptation. For me, it's easy. I live out here in the middle of nowhere. Unless I was shopping online, which I don't have that desire or that temptation to do that. I know it takes a whole week for something to get here, so I don't get that excited about shopping online. But avoiding temptation, not just putting yourself in situations where you might have the tendency to do that if you already have the tendency to fall in some of these categories. And then don't buy what you don't have money for. That's my rule of thumb. If I don't have the cash to pay for something and it's going to run me short, I think about that long and hard, and I'm not going to overextend myself. And then the last one is focus on your end goals. Sometimes that can be the first thing that helps you not fall into these categories. I wanted to retire early. That was my focus. I didn't care about spending on certain things if I knew I was going to get to that end goal quicker if I didn't spend on them. And that kept me focused and motivated and less tempted to purchase things. And it still does, because I don't want to go back to trying to find a job. I know that that would be extremely hard for me. I was so burnt out. I was in so much pain. I don't want to go back there again. So that is something that keeps me on that path to my goal. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I just found this so interesting, but then again, I've worked in mental health a big part of my career. I was a mental health nursing home administrator. So I really find things like this interesting. And I also find them helpful, because if I look back at some of these, I fell into a ton of these categories. I think I have fallen into all of them except for like just spending a crazy amount of money for 3 days. I haven't fallen into that category. But even that intoxicated one, I wasn't intoxicated, but I'd had surgery. I was on pain meds, which basically is another under the influence type of situation, right? I had 2 teenage daughters at home. I had all of those clothing magazines they used to send you in the mail, and I just let them pick stuff out. I don't even recall this. And I was ordering clothes and clothes and clothes and laying in my bed and taking my pain pills when I was supposed to and looking at these going, wow, that's really pretty. And for weeks after that surgery, clothes just kept coming in the mail. And my daughters, they had a heyday. They had all these new clothes, and I'm like, what was I thinking? I wasn't thinking. I had been sedated and taking pills for pain, and I wasn't thinking anything through. It just seemed like a really good idea at the time. So I think we've all been in different situations like this. I'm definitely not saying that I haven't. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I can't wait to see you in the next one. Please give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it, and I hope to see you soon.